Thank you, Garrett. Good morning, everybody. I'm super nervous, so I've never usually in front of a microphone or in front of an audience. You know, I'm a filmmaker, as Garrett said, and I've always found comfort kind of behind the camera, so I've treated films as my way to communicate and kind of connect with people. And so from this, I guess, standpoint is how I'd like to talk about the topic of thread this morning. And again, I think, as Garrett said, film is my medium, but I think the topic and theme of thread can be applied to any kind of art form, any medium that we're working in. And hopefully, you know, through all the stutters that I inevitably will have, you guys can pick up something cool that you can apply to your own work. But, sorry, I went ahead of myself. Before I get into that, I wanted to play a short film that I've made with someone you guys are probably very familiar with, Mr. Jasper Wong, who's here in the morning too. And again, this is my way of kind of communicating. So the video will kind of be what I talk about and relate to through the rest of the talk. And yeah, we'll get into it.
Like in a lot of ways, art saved my life. Drawing was always an escape for me. I grew up in a broken family. And I just drew all the time, non-stop. It was a way to escape out of my current reality. It's a way for me to heal. The best sort of state to be in when you're creating is when you don't feel like you're creating anymore. It feels like you're channeling something else. It's almost meditative. Part of me also has a lot of imposter syndrome too. And sometimes I don't feel like I deserve the praise. I don't think I'm as good as people think I am. So there's a lot of internal turmoil. And I end up being my own worst critic. Sometimes you have to get the bad work out before the good work comes. And the more you do it, the better you get. And so it's just a part of me. And I think I relied on it so much growing up that now it's everything. And I see that with other people, and I want to encourage and provide platforms for it too. And I see how important it was for me and how it saved my own life. And I can see the positive impacts that it can have on communities. I create art because I want to create a future that is better for the next generation. I think I create art because I need to. I don't really have to fear people liking my art anymore. As long as I like it, it's okay. Yeah.
Give it up for Jasper, everybody. I mean, we could probably spend the whole morning just using his inspiration to draw inspiration from, but I think I wanted to start the topic off with kind of defining and identifying what thread means to me, especially in film and storytelling. I kind of see threads as connectors. They help us to kind of bridge the gap between ideas and elements of a piece of work that help us make sense of what we're seeing and hearing. It helps us to understand maybe the creative intentions and the messages behind the art that it is that we make. And again, like I said, art is communicative. It is meant to convey perspectives that we have. And so I see threads as the things that weave together and ties together those elements and those ideas. Using Jasper's piece as an example, I think some of the threads that I can see would be, an example would be his voiceover. Throughout the film from beginning to end, there's a consistent kind of voiceover that leads us through the story. It's an arc. It conveys the message. It ties together, the ideas and perspectives that Jasper has around creating an art and going from having this internal turmoil to overcoming these things. It's a thread that I think, again, conveys that idea. From even if you want to go even deeper into it, there's a little, I would consider it a sub-thread or a micro-thread to that voiceover, could be the sound effect and the sound design behind the way, his sound actually sounded. Meaning there was a bit of like a tinniness to it. It was thinned out. It wasn't as if someone was fully speaking to you in person. It was thin and it was almost nostalgic. So I wanted that to represent almost like an inner voice going on in his head, and you had the opportunity to kind of, dive into the creative mind of him and see why he does what he does. So I think that in itself can be a little mini thread within a thread that helps to convey that idea. Another kind of typical aspect of documentary filmmaking, which is what I would consider that film, it was a bit of documentary narrative, is the idea of show and tell, which is you're matching these visuals that you're seeing on screen to the audio and to the voiceover that you're seeing. So when you have, a line of, I keep coming back to the internal turmoil line because you see the paint kind of rumbling underneath the surface, and you can't really tell why it works, but it does. And I think it's a thread is what ties together those ideas. It's the rumbling and the chaos and kind of unease of that line. And so tying those together, you're almost creating these mini threads within a bigger thread of the piece as a whole that helps us, again, understand what it is we're seeing and what it is we're looking at. You're presenting it in a way that people can kind of make sense of it. So I think threads are mostly just there to help us understand why something works, and it also indicates why something doesn't work. So now that we've kind of identified what these threads are, especially it's kind of easy to analyze a finished work of art and see, what can I see that helps me make this piece of work make sense? Now, how can we take these threads or this idea of creating these cohesive things that are tied together, how can we use it in the work that we do? For me personally, I think a lot of it kind of starts with the idea of that age-old adage of throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks. I always like to start everything kind of, even when I approach a film like this, with anything goes. No idea is a bad idea. I'll try to, I'll think of inspiration or things that I've seen that interests me at the time. I'll apply it kind of to the project that I'm working on and see, okay, what if I combine this, piece of music that I've listened that's really inspired me, or a film that I've seen recently, or these shots. How can I apply that into the project that I'm working on? And I see each and every one of those little ideas as kind of like the start of a thread. I don't know if you guys have old sweaters and you see the piece of thread sticking out, and if you're like me, I just you want to grab them all out even if it breaks the sweater. I see pulling those threads as exploring those ideas and exploring the anything goes kind of aspect of pulling on those threads and seeing where it takes you. What if I, combine these two styles that normally aren't there? What if I, try this method or try something different? I'll always kind of approach a project like that. Anything goes. And you can identify those because they'll stick out to you. Whatever's interesting you at the moment, trust in that kind of idea and just go with it, follow it, see where it leads you. For me, when I'm thinking of these ideas, I think the process is very intuitive. It's a very feely process of, okay, how can I tell what's a good thread to pull on? What's a bad thread to pull on? And it's a feeling thing for me. So I'll try to pay attention to some of the feelings that come up. And usually if I have an idea, using Jasper's film again as an example, I think it was maybe 10 years ago, I saw a YouTube video of really high frame rate, slow motion paint just bouncing on a speaker. And so, that was in the back of my mind, and I was like, oh, maybe someday I'd like to try something similar to that, maybe elevate it, do it differently, and, sure enough, there was the perfect application, and I had no idea what it was actually going to turn out to be with the piece, but I just went and shot that footage before knowing any of Jasper's voiceover. We hadn't talked about any of that internal turmoil or inspiration yet. So when it actually came up, there's a bit of curiosity there. I was like, ooh, what if I can tie in these visuals to represent the idea and kind of message he wants to say. Again, threading those things together. So curiosity is always pretty cool. It's a good indicator of a thread that's worth pulling on. So I explore that idea more. The next one that would probably be after that would be excitement. Sometimes when I'm exploring these editing ideas, I'll randomly place a clip next to another clip, and it somehow just works. And I'll ask myself, ooh, why does this work so well? And it's usually a feeling of excitement, or I want to see it go somewhere else. And it happened again with, placing those paint shots under the voiceover of sometimes you have to get the bad work out before the good work comes. I see that as like the paint exploding, and that's a really exciting thing. So I was sitting in my room, and that kind of just happened, and I had to get up and just, holy crap, this is so cool. So it worked. And I think the flip side of that also would be the lack of excitement. If something's boring you, if there's an idea that's not quite right and you're not feeling it, you can ask yourself, that could be a good indicator of, why am I bored with this? How can I make this something exciting? How can I breathe something interesting into this idea? And you can use that boredom to guide that thread. Maybe you still need to pull on it. Maybe you need to explore it a little bit more. And I think the exploratory process of pulling on these threads is really, again, a feeling thing, and we're always kind of asking ourselves, why do I feel this way? Why does this work? Why doesn't it work? And I feel like you can take that with a lot of things. And so now, once you have all these cool little ideas flushed out, and for me, I work on a timeline, and so sometimes I'm putting together a bunch of different scenes and shots and putting voiceover to visuals. Now the goal is, how do we weave together these tinier threads into a bigger piece, or into the tapestry that's going to be your work of art? And I think this is just as exploratory as the previous step of getting all these ideas out. The example I like to use again with Jasper's is the first line of his voiceover in the film is, art saved his life. Now that, to me, sorting through all of this footage and hearing that voiceover I was like, oh, that's like the mic drop moment. That's something that you could easily just end a film with, and that be the complete, just done there. But this process, I think it's, again, just as exploratory. So I asked myself, what if I put that one line at the beginning of the film instead of at the end? And I again, a feeling process. It felt right to me. I was like, oh, this sets the tone. It kind of sets up the entire film to say, hey, art is Jasper's life, and now you're expecting the arc of the voiceover that is set up. I think putting it together again in a way that makes sense to you is what you're trying to communicate and convey to people. Because if it makes sense to you, the goal is hopefully someone else will understand that message and the intent behind it. And I believe that's what the goal of art is. So ending that, I don't know how early I am. I might be going too quick. But I also think from a high level perspective, I think art itself and creating these pieces is a thread. It connects people to each other, because you as an artist, you're communicating your perspective. This art is a reflection of who the artist is. And so whether it's a film or photography or graphic design, whatever kind of creative endeavor we're doing, our goal is to kind of communicate those perspectives. And trusting in your unique perspective is kind of like what I want to encourage people, because I feel like our tastes and the things that we like and our dislikes is all influenced through every life experience that we've had. So there's no bad or good art. It's really just how you communicate and show yourself to the world. at least with that's how I've seen it. It's been my way to, communicate to people, and it's been my way to show my aspects. I got 5-minute mark. I'm pretty much done. So, yeah, that's my thread talk, guys. Get it? Yeah, TED Talk.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. What I was wondering was, once you've created something, whether a piece of art, a film, or for others a song, what do you do with it as you go forward with your life?
Yeah. What do I do with it? I think sharing it's probably the next thing. I think that completes the cycle too. I like the idea that, again, if art is created to communicate things, people should see it. Even if I feel like as artists, we always get kind of caught up in, oh, is this good enough? Are people gonna like it? Or, maybe this isn't as good as the next person's. And, Jasper kind of talked about imposter syndrome, and all these things come up when you're creating art because you're being vulnerable. But I think it's just as much a part of the creative process as sharing it. It allows you to, again, connect with people. You're kind of completing that circle of the reflection almost. So I honestly, I think I'm not the best at sharing all the time, because there's always things that I've completed and I still kind of just have in the back pocket. And you talk to plenty of people, it's the same thing. But I think getting over that idea of it's just art, it's you, and it's a vulnerable thing to share that, but I think it's so important. Yeah.
Oh, I have a question. That was an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
When you were first coming up, did you have filmmakers that you looked up to? And how did you get started with film?
I think I had some filmmakers that inspired me, mostly in, I want to say, the social space. So like Instagram and YouTube was my kind of inspiring filmmakers. I didn't go to school for it. I just kind of picked up a GoPro randomly, and then that turned into, a bigger camera and bigger cameras after that, and you just kind of keep growing and growing. But in terms of like inspiring filmmakers, I really enjoy, like Christopher Nolan. Greta Gerwig's actually, I've been really enjoying like her style of film lately. So, thanks.
Awesome. Hey, yeah, so I'm curious, like, your process when trying to share someone else's story, especially when it's meaningful, like the process in the beginning. Would you, especially if you don't know the person, do you have a process in the sense of wanting to know them off camera first, or do you just kind of get right into the art with sharing their story? Like, how's that go?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's different applications I've had to do it. Like sometimes, a lot of my work actually involves telling other people's stories, and so you don't really have the time to, if I can, I would like to get to know them personally and, have these initial talks to just create that connection. Luckily in this sense of the layers pieces where, it's kind of like a passion thing. Like I don't have a limited timeline on it. I get to sit down and create it and make it something as collaborative as possible. I think I approach it with, hey, I'm telling your story, so this should be just as much you as it is me trying to tell your story. So I think with Jasper, perfect example, like I'd known him previously, but we, just met through jiu-jitsu. So we had a bit of rapport there, but when it came down to like, hey, what kind of message would you want? I'm kind of led that off to him, and especially just like the style of this film. It's about, like Layers is about why people do what they do. So for me to say, this is why you do what you do, it wouldn't fit. So I just treat it as collaborative as possible, and I think it comes down to asking the right questions, and kind of like, again, threads. You're kind of pulling on those questions to get what the right answers, and I'm able to work with the really poetic and awesome answers that they give. That's part of the process, I feel like, with getting the most authentic kind of story out of someone. It's literally just asking like, hey, what is your view of this? Like how collaborative can we be? My job is just to execute it. My job is just to make it presented in a really pretty way. So I hope that helps. Yeah, cool.
Oh, thank you, Nainoa, for your presentation. That was super beautiful. I was just wondering if you had any other creative outlets, and how do you thread them together?
Yeah, a bunch actually. I mean, outlets-wise, I do music production once in a while. I don't share my music, same like what she says. But that's fun, and it's something I should get over. But that's kind of an outlet. Again, I think I consider an outlet something that I don't have pressure to do. Right? You don't need to put it out to appease an audience or like get paid out of it. So yeah, I think outlets are so key. I like, again, music. Jiu-jitsu is like a really big one for me because in a sense, even though you're using your body, it's a physical sport, like it's so creative thinking of these ways, and it's like a chess match, right, with someone else, and you're just doing fun stuff that way. Surfing, same thing. What did you say? Drawing? Yeah, kind of, yeah. Yeah, just art in general. I think you can kind of treat anything creative, right? Like the theme of the whole Creative Mornings is everyone's creative, so whatever it is that we're doing, like we can have our own taste and our own like kind of our tastes go into those things. So yeah, those are some of my outlets. So yeah, right on, bro. Thank you. Thanks for asking that.
What's up, brother?
Hi, Brad.
Yo. I think everybody in this room is probably here because they're an artist in some way, shape, or form, or aspiring artist. But art is hard.
Yeah.
It's vulnerable. It's a very personal thing, right? How do you get over the hard to get to the next thing?
I think the reason it's hard is because of our judgment of ourselves. I think like judgment also comes from a place of us seeing in ourselves things that maybe we don't like. And I think that's reflective of why we believe we can't create something or why we believe that our art isn't good enough. I think it's just we're so judgmental on ourselves. That's the hardest part for me. It's usually, especially when you have eyes on you and you're making stuff. Like sometimes, the thoughts that come up are, maybe this isn't as good as other stuff that I've made. Maybe it's not as good as the next person's thing. But for me, like that obstacle has always been what's like the hardest thing. And so I think it's just, again, remembering to trust in our own unique perspectives and our own unique tastes, because if you see art as just a reflection of who we are, you should be proud of who you are. Or you're not proud, but like you should really love who you are. And so it would be natural to share that if you saw it from a place of, hey, I am good enough. I can do this. And even if it's not as good as that, then whatever, I'm learning, I'm growing. Yeah, that's what I think. I don't know.
That's so good. I have a question, if that's okay. Yeah. You talked about threads, and I think for me, I always am blown away by people being able to perceive those threads in a film or a mural, like when they were like, oh, that's the map of Kaka'ako. I'm like, oh, I wish I knew that. That would be so cool. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, the gold star is where we are. I knew that part, How would you suggest someone practice like seeing those threads in other people's work?
I think seeing it, again, almost in a weird way, as the artist creating it, you're reflecting the art as yourself. As it's almost the same thing as the audience member seeing it. Like what you see almost reflects yourself in a weird way too. So I think practicing, like identifying those threads really comes down to what's interesting to you. What stands out here, and again, asking those questions of why is this interesting to me? Why does that kind of make sense, or why does that make me feel a certain way? And then doing your research, pulling on that thread, being like, how does that work? How does that tie it in together? It takes practice, I think, but it should come naturally. I feel like if we actually follow and are true to what we are interested in, we can say, look, oh, I like that. What's unique about that, and why do I like that? Or maybe I don't like this. Why don't I like this? And then again, I think that's an input to ourselves, and that helps us to kind of like dig into the crate of our tools when we're creating, because then we realize, oh yeah, I liked that about this, but I didn't like that. And I think analyzing other people's work is so fun because, again, they're communicating a certain message. You're the audience member, you're now understanding that message and, seeing all that stuff. I think it's really cool. It's a good answer, or a good question.
Oh, thanks for the answer.
Yeah, buddy.
Great to see that Layers film again, Nai. I think one of the things that I enjoyed most was the color that you put into it. This is definitely a selfish question for those that make videos out there, but if you could just speak to how you think about color to contribute to the story and just your process around it, because it's something that I still can't get right.
Sure.
So would love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in a season of, I think, my career where I enjoy coloring. I think color has played a more and more bigger part to my creative process. Whereas before, maybe I wasn't so concerned about it, but I think, again, this might be just a reflection of where I am as an artist in my point in time of my career, where I'm very focused and liking this type of color. So I think, do you want to know like how I color or something, or is it? We don't have to talk about your paycheck. Sure, yeah. Yeah. I think color, I mean, is, can represent so many things. Like it can convey feelings, it can convey emotions. Like warmth you typically associate with really happy feelings and positive feelings, whereas a cold blue image, represents something a little more sadder or depressive almost. I think maybe a tip for other filmmakers or colorists out there is like, one thing I'm always paying attention is skin tones. Especially in, you can push an image into so many different realms of color that like convey these images, but to bring realism back into it, as long as you see someone with accurate skin tones, you can kind of get away with a lot of really cool, interesting looks. And if you notice like some of your favorite movies, even other favorite films, like they'll take those skin tones and push them into a weird spot, and it makes you uneasy. I'm like, oh, this is totally different. It's not real. And their intention was to make something that is out of worldly. So like The Matrix, super green, right? And it's supposed to represent that dystopian kind of chaos, grungy look. But again, I guess for like documentary purposes or, the type of art that I make, skin tones are super important. And you can kind of push the creativity wherever you want once those are good. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think we got to wrap it up, but thank you so much, Nainoa. Really appreciate your time. We have a gift for you.